I've been an admirer of yours for many, not years, but decades.
Oh.
Yes, but it was back in the 1990s. I was a graduate student, and we were living in a state of excitement and confusion at the same time. Excitement because all that economic growth generated by globalization. Confusion because we were told that history was ending and we're all going to become America. Everyone, there's only one way to go, and everyone would forego their own political, cultural, or even religious traditions and adopt Western values. And then a classmate of mine handed me this book.
Oh,
remember
right.
this?
Yes.
This was the original copy. Okay?
Yes.
The paper was getting fragile here. I'm going to ask you to sign for me when we're finished.
Thank you.
You know, this book, so we started reading this book among my friends, and it was such an intellectual jolt to me at the time. You know, I'm like, what? We can have our own Renaissance. I think in my memory, the first political leader to talk about Asia in such civilizational terms. And this was impactful to my life, to my generation of Asians. And also now, you know, so what I'd like to ask you is this, you know, in 1995 or 96, when it all seemed totally inevitable that we will all become Western liberal societies, and how did you see such a different future, one? And two, now 30 years on, 30 years, such a future is sort of upon us. And so looking forward, you know, we live in a turbulent world. And how do you see the Asian civilizational sphere in this juncture in world history when everything seems to be shifting in fundamental ways? You use the term Madani. It's a term so rich in meaning, and there are many different interpretations. What do you really mean by Madani in the context not just of Malaysia, but of Asia and the world at large?
Oh, thank you, Eric. You start off with a series of very complex questions, and of course I'm touched by the fact that you did follow from a distant land. But let me say this, that the late 90s in particular were the period of economic jubilance and success, to the extent that the World Bank came out with the report, East Asian Economic Miracle.
Yes.
And my colleagues then, Michel Kamdesu of the IMF and Wolfen Son of World Bank, were surprised when I said, thank you very much, but you know, we still have to grapple with serious problems of inequality between urban, rural, the very rich and the very poor, issue of abject poverty, and a poor governance in our societies. And they were shocked because normally, you know, we would then respond. But I think if we do respond to positively, then there will be this disease of complacency.
Yeah.
And then there was also this trend that you must follow their prescriptions.
Yes.
Economic, cultural, political. And that was the time when Huntington was popular. I mean, at least his writings, and backed by our now friend Francis Fukuyama, but the end of history. And many elites actually buy that. To me, it is crap because intellectually it cannot be defended. It can be defended only by those who do not understand history of Asia, the great civilization, Chinese, Indian, Malay or Muslim, you know. So all converge, and these thousands of years of culture and civilization cannot be erased by just a temporary economic success. And I said, why can't we Asians, while taking technology or whatever success from the East and the West, maintain some sort of our own heritage and culture? And knowing, I mean here, growing up with the Malays, the ethnic Chinese in Malaysia and ethnic Indians, I see that these races, they can be very modern, very Western in some ways, but they're also very entrenched in their own tradition and culture. And that actually prompted me to see the need to shift the paradigm a bit. And what is essential is also filial piety, which is very much Confucianist. Is also values, culture, moral and ethics, which will help immensely in our ascertaining the principles of good governance, which is, it can be universal, but it's also very Asian. That's why I talk about the resurgence of Asia, not only economic empowerment, but cultural empowerment. Now it shifts to the next question of Madani. Why Madani? Madani actually is an extension of this. You talk Renaissance, you talk about economic success, you talk about culture and civilization. What attracted me when, during my first real encounter with President Xi Jinping is this precisely, because he is in the sense unique, because one of the few prominent leaders who talk about civilization. So it gels very well with his ideas and our Madani concept. Economy, of course, still remains a fundamental, because people have to live and comfortably. But culture is important because it traces our unique ways and values, which is very embedded in the issue of civilization. So that's essentially what Madani is. Of course, it has its Islamic roots, it has its cultural roots, it has Asian roots. And in a multiracial society here, I infuse the Chinese values and Indian values, so that it becomes more inclusive.
Pluralistic and inclusive. So we're obviously at the end of this brief unipolar moment. I mean, there are interests and elites that want to preserve it, want to hold on to it, but I think it's clear that it's ending or has already ended. And we're moving towards a more pluralistic future, a more multipolar world, if you will. So how do you see Asia, also how do you see Islam play a role in this more diverse, more pluralistic future? Islam, I think, is one of the most significant forces in the world today, with tremendous self-awareness and growth in recent years, but at the same time very diverse, different states, different nationalities, different political systems. So with rich and coherent tradition and values, you began your pursuit in politics as an Islamic scholar. And now Islam is such a major force. How do you see it?
Well, firstly, we are, of course, all relieved the fact that the world is no longer unipolar. Because the emergence of China particularly puts a new sort of ray of hope that there are contending forces which should be essentially friendly to my mind, although some in the West does not see in that way. We in Malaysia, for example, say, look, they are great friends, we should manage and benefit from their contributions and friendship. Now, at the same time, you can see this emergence of Islam, where some the positive, or some there are so-called some extremist traits among the small number, what I consider aberrations from the general trend. But again, as you suggested, Eric, that it is not monolithic. It is so diverse. Although in terms of faith, in terms of promotion of values and ethics, it should be the essence. I see it really positively how it interacts. That is why it is important for looking at the Malaysian experience. We promote aggressively the dialogue, not only Islam and the West, but Islam and Confucianism, for example. Because, and then when the more we probe into deeper, then we realize so many values in common. We had at the time, I remember, when we initiated Professor Tu Wei Ming, one of the great new Confucianist scholars. And he became later a good friend of mine. And he also admitted, said, look, I'm a student of, actually he's a scholar of Neo Confucianism, but he takes strong interest in Islam precisely because of this. And similarly, people like me, who then sees the strength of Confucianism to be, merged with this. And incidentally, I was in Tokyo recently.
Yeah.
I went to Kyoto University and spoke about their great scholar, Toshihiko Izutsu,
Yes.
who wrote this wonderful thesis
Yes.
about Sufism, or
Yes.
the Muslim mysticism, and Taoism,
Yes.
and how the two can, actually, the synergy, the compatibility, which is great. I think that's what the world needs.
Yes.
Instead of this condescending, anti the other attitude that was remnants of colonial imperialistic era.
Yes. In China, I think in recent years, we began to talk about this concept called common values,
Yes.
as opposed to universal
Yes.
values. I mean, the word universal means singular,
Yes.
unit. It's only one way to go. I think the word common
Yes.
means accommodating differences and different values, but yet find something in common.
I think it's correct. I mean, I stand corrected, Eric. I think it's a timely reminder. Although what you mean universal means it's global, it is international, but I think common values probably is a more powerful message.
More inclusive.
More inclusive.
Universal, by definition, is exclusionary.
Yeah, yeah.
There's only one.
Yeah. It's true.
Yeah, so it's a very interesting, but with all that happening, it's exciting, of course, that we're onto a new kind of outlook in the world. Everything is shifting, but there are also many, many dangers, many, many problems and sufferings around the world. I mean, the recent conflicts in Gaza, for instance, and that's close to Islam, and it's the clash between two different types of outlooks, two different types of civilizational spheres, if you will. I don't want to be Huntingtonian about this, but it's true. And you being outspoken about the sufferings of the Palestinians, you actually met with leaders of Hamas. What's your take on the conflict and where it's headed and what it means to the world?
Of course, involve majority Muslims, but quite a prominent number of Christian minority.
Yes.
And as you know, although most have been demolished, so are the Christian churches.
Yes.
So I think this, to me, is the issue of justice, of colonialism, of apartheid, which is not confined to Gaza. I mean, and people talk about always 7th October. That what is to me annoying in a sense that, I mean, you want to erase 70 years of history by talking about one incident and harp on it because that's the Western narrative. You see, that's the problem with the West. They want to dictate the language of discourse. Yeah. We can't accept that anymore, you see, because we are not, they are no longer colonial powers. Free countries should express. I mean, we are as strong in our views during the apartheid policy in South Africa. So, and even in the issue of Russian attack on Ukraine, we have some views on that. But we also need to strongly suggest sort of negotiated settlement, amicable resolution, which is possible but denied by some groups. But what is appalling is the double standards and the hypocrisy.
Oh,
Genocide in Ukraine,
Yes.
and well, some problems in Gaza.
Yes.
That to me has such a impact, a negative impact about what the so-called democracy and the champions of human rights are. I mean, if I talk about democracy of human rights is human rights.
Yes.
It's not just rights of some colored people against the rest, and vice versa.
Yeah, it's total. And but you're also sensing there is an awakening around the world.
Yes.
But before it wasn't like there's an awakening. They're running naked, okay. But at the same time, there's an awakening around the world. I sense there's an awakening of this global South idea.
Yes.
That the people of the global South are finally waking up to their own feelings and their own identity and who they are, and they're beginning to say, wait a minute, not everything on CNN is true.
That's true. Now Global South are getting traction now.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's right.
I was talking to President Lula, Brazil.
Yes, I
Recently.
interviewed him.
Oh, yeah,
Yes,
great.
last year, yes.
Yeah, he's a great guy. And we're just pushing for this agenda forward. I thought we left it for some time. From the days of Chow En Lai and Sukarno and Nyerere
Bandung.
and Nkrumah, the
Yeah.
Bandung,
Yes.
Asia Africa Bandung, 1955.
Yes.
But nothing much has changed in terms of the general condescending attitude, the colonial mindset.
Yeah.
It's still there.
Yes.
As I say, it's appalling.
Yes, it's, but there is an awakening, and it's a matter of how we, I always say that the big difference between the global south and the west is that the west is homogeneous. Same race, same religion, same political system, they are the same. The global south is diverse.
Yes.
Different traditions, different religions, different political systems. But that could also be a strength. So that's a lot to look forward to in the next
That's
10, 20 years.
truly global.
Yes, it's true. We are the world. They are the West.
Yes.
Fareed Zakaria wrote this book called The Rise of the Rest.
Yes,
So he said the West and the rest.
Yes.
And I like to turn that around and say it's the world and the West.
Yeah. But it's interesting, but even the West is cracking.
Yes.
You can see the attitude of
Oh,
Spain,
yes.
for example.
Yes, yes.
Quite assertive
Yeah.
and making no qualms
Yes.
about taking a different position.
Yeah. But then, as globalization is changing, we're seeing, I think it's primarily because the U.S. feeling a lot of competition from China and other countries, but mainly China, that they are trying to go backwards in some ways, especially on technology and on finance. Basically, two things: technology, they want to ring fence the best technologies. They call it small garden and tall walls, so that China and whatever countries they don't like cannot access them, and to reconfigure the global supply chain or disrupt the supply chain. That's on technology. Second is finance. They've chosen to weaponize the global financial system, the sanctions, the U.S. dollar as reserve currency. So can the global south, developing countries who want to develop further, there's a famous scholar in England who wrote this book called Kicking Away the Ladders. It's that you moved up and you kick away, you don't want the next guy to move up. So how do we band together and continue interconnectedness, continue development, with them now trying to retreat and erect walls?
Well, I said, firstly, as far as a country like Malaysia, we don't have that mindset of China phobia.
Yeah.
You see, we consider that an important neighbor, great trading partner, and we don't have problems. And now we're extending it beyond just trade and investments to culture, the arts, education, and science and technology and AI.
Yes.
So, and we are comfortable with it. But the problem with the United States is that they are great champions of competition, but now they are also protectionists.
Yeah.
They are great promoters of free trade. They also runs contrary.
Right.
So I don't think they should impose.
Yeah.
And if countries in which they consider the other have that resolve and strengthen the global South spirit, then we can pose an important force. I mean, if they work with us, fair. I mean, I don't feel that they should revive the Cold War mindset. And I've said it frankly, even that was the session in San Francisco in front of President Joe Biden and President Xi Jinping. I said it was quite a relief that you two great leaders met.
Yeah.
Hopefully it will be for the better, and we in this probably particularly global South will rejoice that. But of course, the Chinese tried, to make the necessary adjustments, overtures. But then when it comes to protecting their turf and blocking the encrypted technology, that is, to my mind, very difficult to comprehend.
Yeah.
Because I thought that we should do whatever is necessary to promote, new technology, new findings, AI, etc. But now, no. But you promote, but it cannot be Chinese.
Yeah,